following program is intended for mature audiences.
A democratic republic of sports. The Sportsocracy with ESPN Asheville hosts Tank Spencer and Jeremy Greene.
We're talking about the Faves and the Fades in fantasy football this year, division by division. Let's talk about the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers, I think everybody's favorite for the Green Bay Packers obviously has to be Aaron Rodgers, but you don't want to do the dull takes.
No, you went with Aaron Jones.
I went with the real spicy take, Aaron Jones, baby.
We're actually exactly opposite here. Because your fave is my fade and your fade is my fave.
And that's fine. We can all agree to disagree. For me, Aaron Jones, there is no more Jamal Williams in town to take away his targets in the passing game. That's the key for me. In the last two seasons, Jones has 96 catches. I think there's an opportunity for him to get a lot more. This is like 35, 45 targets in the last 2 years apiece in passing game targets for Jamal Williams. That workload's not going to A.J. Dillon.
I disagree with you.
Oh, you think A.J. Dillon is going to get some passing game work?
They invested a draft pick in A.J. Dillon, didn't they? There you go. I don't see Aaron Jones. I mean, he's had right at 50 receptions 2 years in a row. I don't think that's going up. I don't. I think Aaron Jones is currently being drafted at his ceiling, and that bothers me. A.J. Dillon, I like this kid coming out a lot. Obviously, the Packers did too because they took him pretty high.
Yeah.
LaFleur has never shown a predilection to give one guy exclusive work. Now the backup is a guy that they invested high-level draft capital in. I kind of refuse to believe that it's not going to be. I don't in any way think this is a 50-50 split, but I think he will get more work than Jamal Williams did. How many carries
in the running game?
In everything. A.J. Dillon's got fine hands, by the way.
Okay. I see A.J. Dillon more as he'll get some of that
goal line because he's a gigantic human being.
Right, he'll get some of the grunt work, and I think that opens up the ability for Aaron Jones to have like an Alvin Kamara type season.
I disagree. I think Aaron Jones is currently being drafted at his ceiling, not at value.
Okay.
I mean, people are taking him ahead of Ezekiel Elliott, which is just fucking insane to me. It's insane to me to take him ahead of a lot of the guys that are going in front of him.
Yeah.
I think Aaron Jones is a mid-second round pick. Because
I think he's a late first round pick for me. If I'm picking at the back end of the first round, I'm definitely going to have my eyeballs on him. I think at the end of the first round, it's between Aaron Jones and Austin Eckler for me as the guy that I'm going to target.
I like Aaron Jones better.
I do as well.
Or I like Austin Eckler.
Oh, you like Austin Eckler?
Yeah.
No, I like Aaron Jones better than Austin Eckler, but to me it's close.
Let's play a fun game.
Yeah.
This is let's go, I only play PPR, so let's go PPR. Aaron Jones had a 45-point game. That was in week 2 against Detroit, who sucked. Other than that, how many times did he break 20 points all year long?
7. 3?
In PPR, he had 3 other 20-point games all year long.
That's crazy.
25 against Carolina, 24 against Philadelphia, 22 against Atlanta. Think about what I just said. That's 4 of the worst 8 run defenses in the NFL. Minnesota's going to be better. I think Detroit's going to be better against the run. And Chicago was always fine. That's 6 of your games. Schedule for Green Bay ain't great. It's not great. Here's another fun little game. How many times did Aaron Jones have 20 carries in one game?
Twice.
Once. Against Carolina. That's it. Never had more than 5 receptions in a game. never had more than 8 targets in a game. He doesn't get a workload like all of these guys around him. Mm-hmm. Even Nick Chubb, who splits time with Kareem Hunt, gets more of a workload than Aaron Jones does. And that scares me because now you're going from a guy that they had little draft capital in to a guy they have large draft capital in. And I just don't – I think we've already seen his ceiling of workload. See, I think a lot of people are doing what he's doing. Jamal Williams is going, let the good times roll. Yeah, you got a second-round pick behind him now. He'll get as much work as Jamal Williams, if not more. And I think he's more of a threat to vulture at the goal line than Jamal Williams ever was because he outweighs him by 40 freaking pounds.
There is potential. A.J. Dillon's a guy that I like. I'm going to be –
as well you should.
Right. I mean, you can get him late in a draft, and if something happens, God forbid, to Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon is what? He's top 10? Could be a top 10 running back? If he got all the workload. If something happened early in the season.
He wouldn't get all the workload.
Who would they give it to?
Whoever else is on that roster. Mike LaFleur has never given Matt LaFleur has never given full workload to any running back. Mm-hmm. Ever. And he never will. Because that's how he believes. Especially now with an extra game. Yeah, I mean, you're going to see a workload split. And I'm not saying it's a huge split, but it's enough to annoy me. Mm-hmm. And I think it could be at the most inopportune times at the goal line. Fun question. How many yards per carry did A.J. Dillon average last year? Now, granted, he only had 46 carries.
Out of 4.5.
5.5.
Okay.
The reason Jamal Williams was allowed to walk out the door is because they like A.J. Dillon. Mm-hmm. The take that you have that just blows my mind is you're not in on Robert Tunion, which it doesn't make any sense to me.
It's not that I'm not in on it. Look, I didn't want to go the route I went yesterday with a couple of teams and put not applicable. So I had to twist and turn to try to find somebody to fade. And if I'm lowering my expectations for anybody this year, it's going to be for Robert Tunion. I mean, he's a fine target down in the red zone. He's going to be Aaron Rodgers' little safety blanket once they get in close. I just don't know if 11 touchdowns is replicable.
It's not. I also think a guy that has an 88% catch rate probably sees more than 59 targets next year. Do you understand he had 59 targets all year?
Mm-hmm. He caught 52 of them, by the way.
88% catch rate. Mm-hmm. I have a funny feeling that's going to go up, especially considering they didn't really add any weapons.
No, Amari Rogers, he was the only one. Woo. I mean, he becomes more of a legitimate partner to me to Devontae Adams, but
Amari Rogers?
Yeah.
He's fine. This slot guy, 20 snaps a game. Nothing outrageous. Here's the thing. PPR, Robert Tunion was the number 3 tight end in fantasy football on 59 targets. 59. That's let me do the math on that. That's like 4 a game. As a matter of fact, it's less than 4 a game. Number 3 tight end in fantasy football.
Mm-hmm. He had a whole lot of touchdowns last year. I just don't know if it's replicable. I don't know how much of that midfield game he's going to get.
Well, currently, he's being drafted behind Rob Gronkowski, Hunter Henry, Logan Thomas, Dallas Goedert, Evan Ingram, Mike Gesicki, Jonnu Smith. Yeah.
I'll take him over everyone.
I will too. Mm-hmm. And yet he's your fade.
He's the only one I could find. That's how much I believe in the actual fantasy relevant weapons of Green Bay. It's the best thing that I can say is don't expect 11 touchdowns out of Robert Tunion. Might be 9.
My problem is I think this team is going to be really good. For me, Aaron Jones is the only one I'm reasonably scared of.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams is going to get workload. It's going to be ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I don't know that this offense will be good enough to sustain 2 first-round picks, which is what they're currently being asked to do.
Yeah.
Don't know that they can do that.
I don't either. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Favorites and fades?
I'm going to yell at you on this one. I already see it coming.
Okay. Favorites and the fades for the Minnesota Vikings in 2021 fantasy football. My favorite is Justin Jefferson.
Spicy
Hot take. I was all wild about this guy last year, and he came in and immediately hit the scene and commanded more workload than anybody else in that passing game. Mm-hmm. And it's going to continue. There's nothing that Justin Jefferson showed last year that gives you any pause as to what he can do. Kirk Cousins can deliver him the ball routinely, put it in good spots, and he can get out and go get it.
I disagree with absolutely none of that.
A 26% target share is kind of mind-boggling.
It's also not exactly replicable.
That I don't know about. I don't know how much less workload he and Adam Thielen are going to get this year.
Let me put it this way. Adam Thielen's played 4 years with Kirk Cousins. Mm-hmm. One, he was hurt and had 48 targets. That was in 2019. Mm-hmm. He had 108 last year. The 2 years before that, he had 142 and 153. That was with Stephon Diggs on the other side. Mm-hmm. I think you're absolutely drunk as – you're Charlie Sheen.
Wow, winning.
Drunk as hell with where Adam Thielen is going currently.
Okay.
I would rather have Adam Thielen where he's going than Justin Jefferson where he's going.
Justin Jefferson, to get him, you got to take him as one of the top 8 wide receivers in the league.
You got to take him back into the second round, beginning of the third. Mm-hmm. You might get lucky and he slides in the beginning of the third. Conversely, I can get Adam Thielen in the late fifth, early sixth. Mm-hmm. He could be a wide receiver 1. It wouldn't shock me.
He could.
If anything happened, if I'm wrong about Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen is a wide receiver 1. Mm-hmm. Because they will throw a shitload, and there's not many receivers in this system. I was all in on Irv Smith until I wasn't. Mike Zimmer came out and said his role's not going to change. Okay, cool. Well, fuck me then. And now how that's going to happen, I don't know. I don't know that I fully believe that with no Kyle Rudolph. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if his role doesn't grow, Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson will both be high-level, top 15 to 18 wide receivers in the NFL. Touchdowns don't matter. None of it matters. Just catches and yards. They will be that good.
Yeah.
That's how good I think this offense can be. By the way, it's also why I like Kirk Cousins as my, hey, you can start the year and then maybe one of my rookies will show up and be phenomenal.
Right.
For fantasy, not on the field.
I took kind of the same tack with this as I did with Robert Tunion. It's just I don't know that Adam Thielen can live up to what he did last year. So it's more of a fading expectations thing than anything. He scored 14 touchdowns last year. Is the most he's ever had. He's 30 years old. What do we know about football players? 30 years old, they tend to start slowing down. Not saying he's going to be.
It doesn't typically go that way with receivers. I love how you're saying age with Adam Thielen, and your quarterback is old enough to be his father.
Uh-huh. Now, don't ask him to out-sprint cornerbacks either.
Adam Thielen is in fine shape.
I'm sure he is. I'm just saying eventually that downfall comes somewhere. And you keep saying it about Tom Brady, it's going to come. I'm eventually going to be right. Well, maybe
He's a decade and a half
Maybe this is my
older.
Tom Brady. Eventually it's going to happen.
He was a sophomore in high school when Adam Thielen was born. This is not the same thing by any stretch. Mm-hmm. And by the way, the 30-year-old thing is running backs, not wide receivers. You're not allowed to hit these guys anymore. Everything you do is a flag. By the way, this is why I stack dynasty rosters with wide receivers.
Right.
Because they live forever. I'm 100% fine with Thielen.
Okay.
The one I'm off of is Irv Smith, and it's not because I don't believe the talent. It's because when people try to tell you who they are, you should probably listen. Mm-hmm. Minnesota has routinely said his role's not going to grow because we don't like fun. Mike Zimmer looks like he's been sitting in a freezer.
He's the new O.J. Howard.
Which is just bullshit. Mm-hmm. O.J. Howard, another member of the West Virginia Ninjas.
O.J. Howard came into the league. I thought he was going to set the world on fire, and then he never got used. And that's how I see Irv Smith and his career trajectory has been so far.
Unfortunately, I'm starting to believe you. Mm-hmm. Dalvin Cooks, who I really wanted to say is my fave because he's my number one running back in fantasy football this year. I like Dalvin Cook more than I like any running back. And if I'm right, then I could be wrong on Thielen and Jefferson because the workload it might not be as high. Mm-hmm. I think Minnesota is better this year than they were last year. Be able to get after quarterbacks. I think they're going to win more games, which means there's going to be less, hey, Kirk threw 47 times this week.
Right.
Not sure you're going to see that again. Thielen, I don't think for where he's going, it doesn't have to be. Jefferson, he better go that way because he's going to need a lot of work share.
2021 fantasy faves and fades. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears.
It's going to be short because we damn near agree on everything.
Favorites, we're going to wide receivers. Fade, it's the running back. It's David Montgomery. David Montgomery's being oversold. Let's start there.
Yeah, he played 4 of the 5 worst rush defenses in the NFL, and he was all of a sudden really good. Mm-hmm. Never been that guy before. 2 years, he had never been that guy.
Yep.
And then the Jaguars, the Lions, the Vikings, and the Texans show up on the schedule. He looks like Barry Sanders, and everybody's running out to snag him.
Yep.
You're drunk. Go home, you're drunk.
It's not replicable.
Nope.
His burst onto the scene in the last, 7 games of the year last year were just, it was ungodly. It was out of character for him. I don't see that as as that's going to continue. He's not a guy that you can get value out of right now.
Put it this way. He had 7 touchdowns against Detroit, literally the 4 teams I just said, and the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. In the 10 games before that, he had 1 rushing. He had 2 receiving, but it's not replicable. You don't get a whole season playing against the dregs of the league. To me, David Montgomery's a 6th-round running back. I'm fine if he's my 3rd. And I would like it better if it was with Justin Fields. And I know he'll never last that long, so he will be on 0 teams that I have.
Right. According to the Fantasy Pros ADP here, it looks like he's going in the 3rd round.
Yep, out. Rather have Miles Sanders, rather have Josh Jacobs, I'd rather have Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
James Robinson?
I'd rather have James Robinson. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have Kareem Hunt. I'd rather have Mike Davis. I'd rather have Damian Harris. I'd rather have, I could do this for a long time.
There's a whole lot of guys that you'd rather have than David Montgomery, who is currently going in the 3rd round. So he is no doubt the consensus fade for us here in the Sportsocracy. Now, the favorite, I got one wide receiver, you got the other one. I got Allen Robinson.
Yeah, yours is, hey, today is Thursday. Mm-hmm. I really like the one receiver they have.
Yep.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure I agree with you. I think you're going to see Cole Kmet take more of a workload. You still got Jimmy Graham. I am hammered drunk on Darnell Mooney. Hammered. With a better quarterback, because I think Justin Fields is going to play from week 1.
That was going to be my next question.
I'm not against Allen Robinson.
Right.
I get one in the 12th round. I get one in the 3rd.
Mm-hmm. You do have to spend top draft capital on him, but he is a guy that has consistently performed. Mm-hmm. He's been a top 12 wide receiver for the last 2 years. He's been one. He has always turned in great seasons, regardless of who his quarterbacks are. Mm-hmm. And this year, if you give him Justin Fields, a guy who I believe can be way better than anybody else he's ever had throw into him, there's no doubt to me that he is going to live up to his ADP this year.
I mean, he's a wide receiver 1. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's the wide receiver 1 that I want because I'm afraid you're going to see too much Andy Dalton. I'm the one that usually projects. Chicago's one I'm not willing to project. Mm-hmm. The reason I didn't like the Justin Fields moves because I felt like the coaching staff would be better served to have Andy Dalton on the field because he's the vet guy and not grow with a rookie. If they agree with me, you're going to see Andy Dalton for 10 weeks before they get fired. Mm-hmm. And Allen Robinson with Andy Dalton, yeah, I'm going to pass on that.
With Allen Robinson's workload that he got last year on how many targets he saw and where he saw them from, he should have finished as wide receiver 4. But because his quarterback play was so bad, he didn't have the opportunity to catch all of those balls that were thrown his way. So I think with just a little bit more accuracy for the quarterback position, Allen Robinson could be a guy whose upside is in the top 5 of wide receivers this year. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions. There's not a whole lot to like about this team. But
we both dislike the same guy.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's DeAndre Swift. He's being overblown.
100% he's being overblown.
And look, I'm a Georgia guy. Love DeAndre. Think he's a very talented player, but I just don't think that he's a workhorse guy in the NFL.
I think he's fine for a workhorse. The problem is they're going to use Jamal Williams. They just paid him.
Yep.
Now, there's a report out today that apparently the Rams have called on Jamal Williams. If Jamal Williams was not with the Rams, then I take back what I said about DeAndre Swift. I still think he's going too high, but I could at least get down with it. The Jamal Williams thing is what scares me on DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
It's not really the talent. He's a 4.5 yard per carry, 8 touchdown guy last year in 13 games. Splitting workload to the highest extreme because Matt Patricia is a douche. A big, syrupy, drippy douche.
When we were talking about the Baltimore Ravens, you said you were concerned by the fact that the Ravens were out looking for another running back. The Detroit Lions are in the same place.
Well, that's another part of this.
They went out and courted Todd Gurley, just like apparently the Baltimore Ravens did.
Well, and they're still in on Todd Gurley, too.
Now, listen, to me, this is it's a bit of a different situation. J.K. Dobbins is a guy that I believe in as the guy that's going to get the most tote for this team. Not saying DeAndre Swift's not that for the Detroit Lions, but I mean,
he 100% is, by the way.
It concerns me more if they're already looking to cut your workload.
There's an opportunity cost here because you don't know what Dan Campbell's going to be. You don't know. I mean, you reasonably know what Anthony Lynn will be from his years with the Chargers and with Buffalo and the Jets. You know what all those teams had in common?
What's that?
None of them had a bell cow running back. Eckler did not get bell cow workload. He got a shitload of targets. And my fear is that there's going to be a split here, and people are taking DeAndre Swift based on talent, not on opportunity. So I am Seacrest out on Swift. If they sign Todd Gurley, I'm super out. Hell, if they sign any running back, I'm Seacrest out. Now, they trade Jamal Williams, don't replace him, roll with Swift and a bunch of young backs. Okay. Now we're more talking. Buying Penny Sewell, I can get down with that.
Yeah, I think the Lions are going to run the football a lot this year, but I still think DeAndre Swift he's going to get his workload cut into by somebody.
I agree.
They're not going to take the risk on running him 25 times a game.
I agree.
Now, let's talk about the favorite. My favorite is Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is the only wide receiver on this team that I want any piece of in fantasy football this year.
I think you're a year too early.
And I may be. I picked him up in 3 dynasty leagues already because I believe that he is going to be something special when they actually get a quarterback that I believe in. Because I don't think the Jared Goff thing is going to last much longer. We can talk about that at another time. But to me, I look at this depth chart and I see Brashad Perriman and Tyrell Williams, and the next guy on the list is Quintez Cephas. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the only piece that I want.
The one that I think you're a year early. In Dynasty, I'm all over Amon-Ra St. Brown. I just think there's going to be some growing pains this year. Mainly because of what you said. I don't like the pieces around him. And so he's a piece that I can see coming on late. Like I can see people in fantasy football taking Amon-Ra St. Brown, getting frustrated 6 weeks into the season that he's got 20 targets. Cut him, then something happens to Perriman, something happens to Terrell Williams, and now he's the one. The one I'm interested in is T.J. Hockinson. I would like him to fall. I don't want to take him in that Mark Andrews territory.
Right.
But I've seen him fall. A lot of people are Seacrest out on this team with Jared Goff. At the end of the day, tight ends got a lot of run in that Rams offense. And T.J. Hawkins, and I would say his floor, absolute floor, is 120 targets in this offense. They're going to be behind a lot. Mm-hmm. He's got pretty good hands. I actually think for T.J. Hockinson by himself, Jared Goff is a step up from Matthew Stafford. Not more talented, more likely to use a tight end.
Okay.
I think about how many tight ends played with Matthew Stafford that were big pedigree guys. Brandon Pettigrew, Eric Ebron. Mm-hmm. Never used any of them. All of them were considered busts with the Detroit Lions.
Yes.
Jared Goff made names out of Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee. Now, granted, they didn't get huge workloads. But like I said, like I've told you before, the Rams did not throw as much as you think they did. Mm-hmm. So don't get skewed by this. This team's going to be behind. I'm all in on T.J. Hockinson. I would like to get him later than he's going, and I think that's going to happen.
To me, I think there's a lot of hype surrounding T.J. Hockinson right now. Not saying he can't live up to it. I just don't. I don't foresee myself being in a draft where he falls to a place where I'm going to be after him.
Yeah, he won the belt at tight end U, by the way.
Yeah.
So you know. Jonathan Welch said that in the comment.
All right, so the year's already off to a great start for him.
T.J. Hockinson, Deontay Johnson. Mm-hmm. No, I'm asking you.
Oh.
T.J. Hockinson, Deontay Johnson.
Which one do I prefer?
Yep.
I'll take Hawk.
Then you'll have him in some places.
Yeah.
Because he's going after Deontay Johnson almost universally.
Okay.
The problem with Hockinson is that there's a huge drop-off to the next tight end. Where I could, and now this is a game that you're going to have to play, and you'll have to, trust in yourself. In terms of ADP, you've got the usual suspects: Kelsey, Kittle, Waller, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts. Those five are in front of him. He is pretty universally sixth. If you're in a league where there's a lot of people like me that either want to be first or last, I could see a path where you ride the lightning of, hey, who will point first? And you do it for a round, and then you get him in the 6th, 7th round. Mm-hmm. And that's tremendous value because that's a guy that you can just pencil in every week. He's the last of the every week, week in, week out tight ends to me.
I would agree
Logan
with that.
Thomas is close, but I'm not there yet. And Tunion.
And, yeah, Robert Tunion.
Yeah. If you want it to be pronounced Tunion, fucking spell it right.
I was just waiting on that. We had to end it on that one. He's always got to get that in, talking about Robert Tunion. All right, so the faves and the fades for 2021 in fantasy football in the NFC North. Green Bay Packers, I'm in on Aaron Jones, out on Robert Tunion, which is, I shouldn't have said it that way. I'm not out on Robert Tunion. I just think you should expect some regression.
Basically for the whole division, the net of it is that we completely disagree on Robert Tunion and Adam Thielen. We're in lockstep on David Montgomery and DeAndre Swift.
Yep.
And there are a few dart throws that you can have in this division late in the draft that I think will be conducive to winning in fantasy football. You think will be conducive to winning in fantasy football.
Yep.
And you're absolutely drop dead, absolutely ridiculously fucking wrong on Adam Thielen.
No chance he doesn't underperform this year.
No.
Okay.
You're just drunk wrong. Gary Busey, Charlie Sheen, drunk wrong on Adam Thielen.
I do. I think there's a chance that he could underperform this year from where you expect him to be. Not saying he's not going to be good. Just saying we can all agree to disagree. I'm Tank Spencer. He's Jeremy Greene. We are live in the Wicked Weed studio. WickedWeedBrewing.com. Drink different.